For Sunday, March 18th, you found the Georgia gang. Topping our agenda today, an unprecedented criminal probe into freedom of information at City Hall. The McIver trial fascinates the metro area, and the leading candidate for governor on the Democratic side has a mountain of debt. Some of the stories up for grabs on the Georgia gang.
From the Fox 5 studios, the Georgia gang starts now.
And we're glad you could be with us on this St. Patrick's Day weekend. We hope Vice President Pence emerged safely from Savannah and the festivities there.
And even with protest signs
yes.
in view.
Yes, exactly. But the weather's warming up and the news is heating up. And Phil, you've been, like me and like Alexis, on the front lines of the Freedom of Information statutes in this state. You've worked with the First Amendment Foundation, as I have. Now we have, for the first time, an Attorney General of Georgia calling the GBI in to investigate delays in Freedom of Information requests at Atlanta City Hall. First time ever in a criminal sense. Some of us have managed to eke out ethics violations against various governments and so forth, but this is a different thing.
Well, that's right. What we're talking about is it occurred under the administration of Mayor Kasim Reed, and it involved two of his communications people at City Hall. And there were profanity-laced texts that indicated delay all of this information. It had to do with city council members not fully paying their water bills, including Keisha Lance Bottoms, who's of course now the mayor
perhaps
of Atlanta.
Kasim Reed and his brother.
That's right. And so this was one of the most egregious things I've seen in my 30 years of doing journalism, and I'm glad, as you're saying, the GBI has finally opened up. This needs to be, people need to be made an example of.
Well, normally, Alexis, in these kinds of cases, a newspaper editor somewhere around the state thinks he's getting hosed by the local county commission, files a complaint, somebody looks at it, and yes or no, and in my case, I had one in my area, which resulted in ethics training for the city council. Okay, move on, don't do it. You were wrong.
Right.
But this is criminal.
Well,
this could be felonies like perjury, tampering with documents.
It could be, but we'll see what happens with the investigation. And for the viewers, again, the investigation initially was about releasing information regarding the what is it? The
water bills. Water bills, trip to South Africa.
Well, just generally, but I mean, the main investigation that was about the contracts.
Oh, the corruption, yeah.
It's and fixing not corruption, but fixing contracts. But any case, when the mayor made the press conference with all the boxes of information that he was giving to the city, and he was cooperating, said he was fully cooperating, and then you have these emails that show something different. So that, I think, is why it rings as a potential. Yeah,
the text said make everything as confusing as possible, and it was really it's a terrible blight on the reader.
Return to Theron, because you work the you work the political side of things, and it strikes me that where the mayor was really in the case involving Dale Russell of Fox 5 and others, it looks like the mayor was trying to avoid political embarrassment, or his staff was trying to avoid political embarrassment for him. For example, the business class tickets and the trip to South Africa taken by a bunch of city officials. I think there was $55,000, and the communications gal said, we don't have those bills. There's no paperwork, really. That didn't pass the smell test. But there was the fact that maybe the mayor had left a water bill unpaid. Maybe his allies on council hadn't paid their water bills. These are not egregious things, they're just embarrassing.
Well, I think the first thing we can't do is that we can't commingle a lot of things. And so, you know, we're talking about a lot of different things. We're talking about water bills, we're talking about trips to South Africa, and then we even kind of weaved in a little bit in there, you know, some investigations into some of the bribery stuff in the city of Atlanta. So let's just stay with the actual water bills and the two Reed employees that are being talked about. So what the GBI is going to do is that they're going to investigate this information that was released by a young lady who worked in the watershed department. Now, we all know, and as it was reported, this woman did not leave under the best circumstances from the city. So she therefore screenshotted and turned over text messages to the investigators. And so I think what the GBI is going to be looking for, Dick, is to see, one, was this sort of a pattern of behavior in the administration, or was this just sort of an isolated incident?
Good point.
But for our viewers, I think the key thing we've got to continue to remind people and to be factual is that all of the evidence, all of the records that they requested were turned over. So what's in question is how long did it take, and was there some internal communication?
Exactly, and it took 6 to 8 months in some cases.
But the thing I think that's
like travel receipts,
which is a violation of the law.
But again, let's not rush to judgment, and let's not start doing the investigator's job. Let's let them get in there. But the one thing I think I just really want to say.
Come on, what will we be here for?
But this is the thing I really want to say, and I think that the only people that are continuing to talk about Mayor Reed and his administration are some people on this panel, some reporters like Dale Russell and others at another station. He's gone. He served the city well. This is now a new administration. Mayor Bottoms should not be, being blamed.
I didn't mention her name.
Yeah, but I think there's some people in the press that are doing it. Then the second thing that we got to make sure we get in here is that as soon as Mayor Bottoms came in and she was alerted of these allegations, she took some internal steps. She's now instituted a protocol, internal structure. She's even trained employees not to just respond to open records requests from corporations like the press, but also if personal citizens make open records requests, let's figure out how we can get that.
I want to change the subject.
I think just as a footnote to this, I think it is incumbent on the new mayor to show that she's going to be transparent and open, and she ought to start by firing Ann Torres, who was part of that last administration, who was complicit in these cover-ups or delays.
But you can't.
You got to wait to see what
the
GBI
you can't get into
says.
just firing.
Well, we know from press reports what had happened.
No, but I think that, Phil, you can't leave out the point that she took this huge step internally to say, guys, we got to create this structure, this protocol.
I think that's good. I'll give her credit for that.
Let's make sure we give her that credit.
Yeah.
All right, now this is a hard transition to make. The McIver trial. It doesn't fit into any of this. It's an old-fashioned kind of a thing. It's a story of love and maybe not so much love. And it's a story of crime. It's a story of cover-up, and it's a story of race even, though I think that's only a peripheral part of it. But we don't have a lot of time here. And we're not going to pretend to cover the trial. It's too complex. Just give me your impressions of this first week. What do you come away with it thinking?
It's like a TV show. I mean, it's
well said.
It's just unreal almost in terms of how dramatic, and I don't know. It's just weird because, well, for the viewers,
there are no real answers.
Well, yeah, because the person is dead who might have some, although they did have some last remarks from her saying it was an accident. Yep. And it's just...
Phil, what do you think?
Well, it's obviously the most sensational murder trial in a long time in Metro Atlanta. And Tex McIver, a prominent attorney, is being accused of felony murder. And the question that the jury has to ask itself and then ultimately answer is, was there intent to kill his businesswoman wife, who was also very prominent? And I have to say, the opening statements, I've talked to a lot of lawyers and prosecutors this past week, I'm sure everybody has. I thought the opening statements by both sides were very weak. And I think this is going to drag on for about, and mistakes were made on both sides. If you, I don't know why the more experienced attorneys like Clint Rucker for the prosecution and Bruce Harvey for the defense weren't doing the opening statements. I think they would have done a much better job. So it does hinge on all of those factors that you're talking about, but he's going to, I think McIver is going to, the motive of McIver is going to be the key.
That's pretty strong.
Well, we don't know. We don't know what the jury's
with you,
thinking.
and I will tell you this: I've learned to refresh my browser on the live blog. I'm fascinated by it. I check it all the time. It's just a fascinating television drama. Yeah. Thank you, Alexis. All right, we didn't get to the belt line. We'll do that in a minute. Let us regroup. When we come back, for sure, we'll check in down at the state capitol, and we hope you will stay with us.
Have a question or comment for the Georgia Gang? Visit their website at fox5atlanta.com.
All right, before we turn to the state capitol, let's turn to something I think significant. Alexis, you'd probably be the best to comment on this. Keisha Lance Bottoms, off to a good start with a $25 million purchase of 5 miles of railway lines from CSX on the south side of Atlanta that could be turned into the connection to the Beltline. Right. Looked fantastic in the renderings.
Yes, and it's very exciting because for the viewers, again, the Beltline is about a 20-plus something mile ring within the city limits that is a circular connectivity, and it's really blossoming. And of course, the East Side Trail has just encouraged all sorts of development, and so we're hopeful that this new acquisition will do the same for the South Side.
I agree with what you're saying, and there was also, Dick, legislatively a Beltline bill, and which got installed, which is a shame because, as you point out, there's about 22 miles of the Beltline, but only about 7 miles are paved, and so that's kind of one of the goals, is to start paving more. And that bill was supposed to get more funding, and it looks like it stalled.
It was a big win for the mayor. I mean, for her to come in, and to your point, Alexis and Phil, you know, the Atlanta Beltline is one of our crown jewels in the city. I mean, we're known for a lot of things, but how families can go out and take advantage of this you know, green space and this connectivity in our city, it was just really wonderful. And I think it's more to come, but this is definitely a good start to really make sure that the funding is there for the Beltline, because this project is going to go on until the mid 2024, 2026, and so we got a long way from completion.
Also along the same lines with the city of Atlanta, Moore Stiggs reported on Fox 5 this week that Chief Erica Shields said flat out that she's 300 officers short.
Yeah.
That's a lot of policemen, and the academy classes are empty, Phil.
Unfortunately, the academy classes are way down, and I attribute this to some bad morale and some bad decisions by the police chief over the last couple of years. And the policing, I hear from cops on the street, they're pulling back because of why? A lot of times the videos, and the chief has got to back up officers who make righteous arrests.
All right, let's turn to the state capitol. That's okay. That's fine. I know we can argue that on both sides, but I want to turn to the state capitol. The governor did the one thing the General Assembly is supposed to do, is create a budget. The governor signed that last week, so there's not a lot of contention. There are 3 very confusing measures, however, in Fulton County, offered by our conservative friends in the legislature, to cap property taxes for schools and county operations in the true North Fulton, north of the river. Sandy Springs already has it. Voters are going to be asked to vote on 3 separate items, Phil. Is that right?
That's exactly right. And I think there'll be a big vote tomorrow, Monday, in the legislature for the city of Atlanta, and all of the entities you're talking about in North Fulton that need relief.
The city of Atlanta would get the 3% cap.
The city of Atlanta also has a legislation with regard to capping.
Yeah, and this is something that's being talked about at the Capitol.
Well, how will they run the city of Atlanta if their property revenues are capped?
Well, but I think the undercurrent issue here is that we know in Fulton County that you have a housing market where, you know, it's booming. You know, it's a seller's market, and then now, because of the good economy and the good market, you have property taxes increase. And so, while I think it's now 3 bills that are kind of being discussed, the good news is that you have the Fulton County delegation working with Fulton County, and there's bipartisan support to figure out how we can get some tax relief to the people of Fulton County.
And to her credit, Mayor Bottoms is working with Representative Beth Beskin, who represents the Buckhead part of the city, on this.
Yeah. Yeah. And shout out to State Representative Beth Beskin. She talked a little bit about this at the well before crossover day, and so that's another good cooperation that Mayor Bottoms is continuing this good relationship with the Republicans.
Tax relief, a good conservative pillar
for the conspiracy theorists among us.
Yes.
And for those who think the Russians truly hacked the election, I see the General Assembly is headed back toward paper ballots in our elections.
Yeah.
It looks like it. They haven't talked about the money, but it looks like it'll be a computer form with a paper
trail.
Mm-hmm.
There would be a receipt, a paper trail, and it looks like that may pass.
Yeah, I mean, you remember we talked about this a couple weeks ago. I think it was Lieutenant Governor Casey Cagle who came out before he really went to the right with this sort of criticism of Delta and the NRA. He came out and basically said that he was for paper ballots. And so I think at a time when we have seen countless amount of sort of improper activities at the voting booths, and some people have reported some things, I think this is a good measure for us to really, talk about it.
It's going to be interesting, though, because I don't think it's going to make any difference, because it's going to still be computer-based.
Right.
So it's interesting, though.
Yes, but at least you can now match where you can't now. You can now match the paper receipt with if the computer is hacked or messed up.
One quick story involving DeKalb County that I find fascinating. On that 60% pay raise that the commission voted itself, and that Michael Thurman, for some reason, didn't veto. It's interesting that Nancy Jester, the commissioner, the only one who voted against the pay raise, is now accusing legislators of discriminating against women
for gender,
because their staggered terms don't match up.
Yeah.
What is the ultimate in hypocrisy? It seems to me it's saying one thing and doing another.
Possibly.
So it seems that she is saying, give me that pay raise now,
Right, because
while voting against it.
right.
Well, and I appreciate Senator Fran Miller of DeKalb County especially, and he's doing a time-honored adage. If you're going to raise your pay, if you're a city councilman or a county commissioner, do it for the next term.
Which is what he listened to me, what I said last week.
Right.
And to add on, so the CEO did not veto the bill because it did comply with the state law and the county charter. And then this bill by Fran Miller will not only be particularly focused on DeKalb County, it's a statewide bill that will sort of institute. Right. And I think the other thing going forward, to your point about Nancy Jester, she could have easily, during that commission meeting, said, you know what, let's go back to normal calls, let's have a full vote on it. But she said nothing. She actually voted against it. So to your point, Dick, I think it's definitely hypocritical for her now.
She also knew it wasn't on the agenda. It was a hidden item. It was an outrage from pillar to post.
Yeah. So
Dick, let me mention one last thing before we get off the legislative thing. We're nearing the 40-day mark, which is the adjournment of the Georgia General Assembly. Yeah. Sine die, that's right. And as we all know, we've all covered this over the years and seen it. Anything can happen on day 39, but especially day 40. And I'm going to look in the crystal ball. And you mentioned the Delta fuel tax exemption that was blocked a couple weeks ago. I think that might come back up in the last day of negotiations to try to get that back on, because as we all know, there's horse trading. Alexis, you've got a bill, I've got a bill, I'll do yours, or if you do mine, or I'll block yours if you block mine, and it'll be very interesting.
You also can
it's coming up
attach
soon.
Things to other bills.
See, Casey Cagel's trying to make good, huh?
You got your Delta blue suit on today.
There you go.
We got to get out. When we come back, one topic for sure. Does Stacey Davis, the Democratic candidate for governor, Stacey Abrams, what am I? See, I practiced getting this right.
That's right.
Does Stacey Abrams, the Democratic candidate for governor, require credit counseling? Stay with us.
Have a question or comment for the Georgia Gang? Visit their website at fox5atlanta.com.
With the statewide campaigns underway, with a primary election in late May, the financial disclosures are becoming very interesting. I think, Theron, I'll start with you. I guess the most revealing one was Stacey Abrams, I would say the front runner in the Democratic race for governor. Though no votes have been cast. She's amassed a huge amount of debt, and she owes the feds $50,000 in back taxes, and she's got credit card debt that would cause Clark Howard to have a stroke.
Well, I think the main thing we want to make sure we're factual for our viewers is that she said the reason she incurred this credit card debt is because she had some family issues and she had to sort of take care of her parents and other family members. And so let's start by there. But I think into question, Dick, to your point, is that what people are going to ask throughout this campaign is that how does one manage their personal finances, and if elected to governor, how will they manage the state budget, and how would they try to get the people to entrust in their abilities in doing so. So I think two parts of it is that she shouldn't be criminalized, or she shouldn't be talked bad about because she had to do something personally. But I think the concern is that if you knew that was out there, then you run for office, and then how do you defend it now that your opponents on the Democratic side and on the Republican side, if she advances, because we still have a primary.
Thank you. And then you look back there, and remember a couple of years ago, she started some nonprofit voter registration group, and she wanted a salary of $177,000, and she was scoffed at, but hey, she needed that money. I mean, she hasn't paid off her college loans yet. She's past 40.
Well, she's paying off her law school loans primarily.
Law school.
For Yale. But yeah, it's an issue that I think many Georgians can relate to, having school debt and also family personal issues. She's the second oldest of 6 children. Her parents are both ministers who have little income, and they were devastated by Katrina in 2005, and she took on helping to support them, as well as a niece of hers.
I'm sympathetic.
And, I think we all should be sympathetic. I mean, people go through rough patches when it comes to income and finances, but I agree with you, you should get in front of that story and explain it before your opponents do, number one.
Well, she did. She has.
No, in
you
fact,
just haven't been paying attention.
The media actually, it was because the media was investigating this.
No, she had a financial disclosure, but she's also talked about it personally. And in all of her campaign appearances.
she's had rough times. We didn't know about these giant debts, but secondly, Stacey Evans, her Democrat opponent, has rightly jumped on this and basically is saying, you know, this is terrible. She should have cleaned this up before she ran.
Well, on the Stacey Evans side, it's interesting too, because there was some suggestion that she might be able to self-fund her campaign, but not so. She's loaned actually 1/3 of her net worth to her campaign.
Right.
She's wealthy, she's comfortable, but she's not able to fund a campaign for governor. Same way with on the Republican side, Clay Tippins. Some thought originally that he got in, he could be a guy like David Perdue who basically pays for his own campaign. That doesn't appear to be the case.
But in regards to Stacey Evans, I think that, yeah, she has given 1/3 of her net worth at this time to her campaign. But I think we talked about this a couple weeks ago. She has more money on hand. And so there's this anticipation that Abrams is going to be able to go out and get more money. You know, she had a PAC put up an ad that I think only stayed up for 3 days, the one we talked about last week. So I think Evans has more cash on hand, and I'm hearing from my sources is that she's going to, in a few days here, really start to invest in some paid communications and really get her message across the state. And
when
what
you
she
say
wants
paid
to do.
commissions, you mean television?
Yeah,
radio?
paid communications.
And I hear the same thing that you're hearing, and a lot of times there's nothing wrong with an infusion of money because it makes you a player, but you're absolutely right. Always look at the cash on hand for a candidate.
And that's the traditional view, but I think that Stacey Abrams has taken a non-traditional tack by spending the money to open up offices and do the grassroots campaigning that's going to be required.
She's doing that, but that's, you would admit, a very risky strategy.
Yeah, but I think it's a planned strategy, a well thought out strategy. She's not doing it just because she has to. She's doing it intentionally.
A quick shout out to Senator Johnny Isakson. Sometimes you think politics is all about, well, politics, like we're talking about. But in fact, there's also public policy, and I was interested to see that Senator Isakson this week completed passage in the Senate of a second Peace Corps reform bill protecting Peace Corps volunteers. He's stuck with that for years, and to get 2 bills passed on that, I think is pretty impressive. All right, we got to get out. When we come back, winners and losers.
Time now for the week's winners and losers.
And remember our Facebook page, and remember us on YouTube. We're there every week. And let's see, winners and losers. How about you, Phil?
I've got a winner, and that is the concept of free speech in a couple areas. Last week I criticized Kennesaw State University for discriminating against a conservative student group and trying to shut down their speaker. The Board of Regents policy permits free speech. They are as upset as everyone else. I'm sure that there'll be some punishment meted out to that person over at KSU that did that. And you know, Liberty Plaza is right next to the state capitol in Atlanta, and that was designed to be a free speech area for all. I don't care if it's right, left, and some of the rules that have been promulgated on having the groups there are totally screwed up. You have to get host permission from all the constitutional officers. Let's do away with that.
8 constitutional officers.
Let's do away with that.
Them.
Right.
Just schedule a group. I don't care what they say. I don't care what they do. As long as they're peaceful, schedule any group and let them speak there.
And shout out Governor Deal for stepping in. And
Governor Deal does deserve.
And Mary Margaret Oliver.
And
That's
Mary
right.
Margaret,
And State Superintendent of Schools, Richard Woods, who hosted something he disagreed with, just so they could speak. And I think that was good.
That's fine. Darren?
All right, I got a few winners. And so the first winner I have is all of the students, the parents, the faculty and staff, elected officials, the entire Atlanta City Council, I think majority of them, who participated in the National Walkout Day. I want to commend these young people, and more importantly, the school systems, the principals who allowed these young students to express their First Amendment rights to peacefully protest and really push for full comprehensive gun control in our country. I definitely want to make Mayor Bottoms and the Atlanta Beltline my winner as well. We talked about that earlier with the purchase of the land. I also want to congratulate Connor Lamb, who won the Pennsylvania 18th Congressional District. This is a district that Donald Trump won by 22%. So Phil, as you and I have our blue on today, the blue wave is real. It's coming to Georgia soon. It's coming to Georgia soon. And I want to recognize Jay Bailey, a guy who's a good alpha man, who is from UGA, who's now going to be the president and CEO of the Russell Center for Innovation and Entrepreneurship. And then lastly, definitely Donald Trump is going to be my loser because he lost that race for Rick Sencombe.
Connor Lamb ran as a Republican to get elected elected as a
No,
Democrat.
that's the Republican
You know,
line.
he's
That's
he
not
was a
true.
Second Amendment guy. God bless Connor Lamb.
But he was,
Pro-life? Come on, he's all the stuff I am.
okay,
All right,
well
go,
then
Alexis.
maybe you're really a Democrat. Okay, here we go. George Andrews, who is the founder and CEO of Capital City Bank, that is now defunct, is going to be the new Georgia chief of the Texas-based Unity National Bank here in Atlanta. It's going to be located in downtown Atlanta when it opens this week. Also, I want to include Maria Karstafen in the salute for the walkout day. She's the Atlanta school superintendent, and she was very supportive and walked out with her students.
All right, let me squeeze in Lane Flynn, the DeKalb Republican chairman. Young guy, was on Jeopardy a week or so ago. Had a 3-night run, won twice, won almost $40,000. It's just typical of the brilliance of Republicans, even when they're in a minority position in DeKalb County. See you next week on the Georgia Gang.
Oh my goodness.
The opinions expressed in this broadcast are those of the panelists appearing in this program.